This is ICASTnews.com, live and direct from United Nations headquarters in New York City. And this is Bubbling Under and Bubbling Over. For all that Bubbling Under and other ICAST News programs have cast an eye on boats and pirates and naval activity, we've never paid particular attention, nor has the UN paid a great deal of attention to ferry boats. Yet repeatedly, any experienced foreign correspondent deals with ferry boat accidents. This week, on Lake Tanganyika, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, a ferry boat sank. Initial reports had a couple dozen people perishing. The news now in is that more than 129 individuals have died. News is never accurate in numbers. Body counts can get correspondents confused. Yet it seems that this may be the time for the United Nations or one of its constituent bodies to come up with a series of concrete, nearly ironclad, or perhaps in this case wooden-clad so they float, rules and regulations for life preservers, for the construction, maintenance, and inspection of ferry boats. Africa has enough problems right now without killing people by the negligence of ferry boat operators and owners. In the good news department, reports out of Peru. There has been an agreement reached on at least how to proceed with a climate deal. 196 nations meeting in Lima, Peru, have agreed on an extension of the Kyoto protocols with a big change, a political change. The 196 nations have gone beyond the it's okay if the big developed countries do something about global climate change, but we developing countries, we got to be given a break. Now everyone, at least politically, is on board to do something, to reach some kind of agreement in Paris in a year about the warming of the planet. There is agreement that as countries proceed with their economic development, with their eye on the environment, they must do something so that the 2 degrees Celsius, 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, rise in temperatures over the average of the pre-industrial period are reversed. The science on this is really fuzzy. It's the politics that matter. The politics that there is now agreement among the world's countries that everyone is responsible for doing something about the environment. And this puts the heat, the pressure on countries like India and China, which have been building up their economies by building up their use of dirty coal so that they could go through the industrial boom that the more developed countries, the first world, experienced in what in American terms is called the Gilded Age, in Russian terms is called the Iron Age, in British terms is called pure capitalism. Good news, agreement. But the devil is going to be in the details that are going to be hard to reach in Paris in a year. The civil war in Syria is preoccupying many global thinkers. But the strategy or non-strategy, the de-chemical weaponization of Syria, the pressures of the two large powers in the world, the United States and Russia, need to be set aside. It's the unpowerful, the suffering, the 3 million people who are refugees in Jordan, in Turkey, in Lebanon, in Iraq, who are the objects and the subjects of this civil war. Now the United States, for the first time, is joining the European nations in saying it will do something to resettle upwards of 100,000 people. The United States says that it is going to begin processing the 9,000 Syrian refugee applications that it has. We are advocating something we're calling the Stony Brook Plan, asking American institutions of higher education, each institute of higher education in the United States, to take one scholar, doctor, nurse, Arab teacher for each 10,000 students it has. For more on this, see our segment on heat in the Middle East. In the Middle East, attention is being paid now to the actions of ISIS. The equivocation, the moderation, the dilly-dallying of the United States and other nations is not at the center of our attention this week. What's at the center of our attention is the barbarity being shown by ISIS. In one instance, in Al-Furat province, ISIS has castigated and cast a young man condemned for following the practices of Lot, that is, being a homosexual, to being thrown off the roof of a building, and they have photographs to prove that they did it. ISIS has also issued a brochure which, thanks to the Middle East Media Research Institute, has come to the attention of many, which prescribes the exact treatment for girls who've been made slaves because they've been taken prisoner, because they are non-believers in Islam, and who, whether they are prepubescent or postpubescent, are subject to their owner's sexual demands along a line of specificity. The one glimmering of humanity in the specified way to treat your slave is that ISIS believes it is wrong for a man to have sexual relations with his wife's slave. Boy, that's progressive. Right out of the 9th century. 2014 has been proclaimed the worst year for children in recent memory by UNICEF. Children are the victims across the globe. UNICEF continues to fight for the rights of children, be it those who are living in the cold because they lost their houses in the Gaza Strip war that went on for 51 days this summer, be it the victims of the civil war that's raging in Darfur, be it the victims of rape at the hands of ISIS. UNICEF is calling for a larger budget, and so is the United Nations. The United Nations wants to have a budget for 2015 of $16.4 billion. The economies in some countries are getting better and growing. The result, in some measure, of the disruption of technological innovation, in this case, fracking, and the continued pursuit of Moore's Law, which cheapens microprocessors or doubles their capacity, depending how you look at it. But Europe is on the brink of perhaps dipping into a recession. So is Russia. So it's time for the countries that are doing well to help the United Nations. And finally, the larger view. We like to end with a larger view, a view from space. The European Space Agency has done some remarkable things this past year. Its probe of a comet, the Rosetta project, is bringing back all kinds of interesting data that's now just being analyzed. The little probe Rosetta has run out of power because it landed in a place where its solar batteries could not be recharged. Something that all of us who have cell phones know about. When you can't recharge your device, things go dark. But yet, in the darkness, the European Space Agency has brought us many enlightening facts. The most intriguing of which is that comets probably did not bring H2O, water, to Earth. Their kind of use of oxygen and hydrogen does not bring about water. The supposition now is that it's asteroids, smaller bodies, bodies without glowing tails, bodies that lack the sheer poetry of a comet. Mark Twain noted that he came in with Halley's Comet and he died with Halley's Comet. Since before modern religion, people have looked to the skies and been inspired and intimidated by comets. It turns out that science is telling us these wondrous and wonderful outer space phenomenon were not the bearers of the basic building block of human life, which is water, which constitutes a huge percentage of our bodies. Not poetic, perhaps disappointing, but science is something that politics sometimes misses. It's always real, and it's always changing. For ICASTnews.com, live and direct from United Nations headquarters in New York City, for Bubbling Under and Bubbling Over, I'm Jonathan Sanders.